Well, I did some more ballasting the other night, and as you can see, it's really come along really nice. I just cracked on with it rather than stopping to film all the time. And it's now, all these sidings are just full of wagons. I've got so many out of storage. It's great. There's about 125, something like that, in these sidings. And all the sidings are ballasted. All the rail tops cleaned up. Wire droppers wired in. That post there, I've actually got designs on a water tower from Bolton Trinity Road, is going to be very carefully adapted to actually fit around that, and then that will come out of the roof like some great big blue erection. And it's just a way of disguising the bottom of it really, and drawing the eye away from the fact that there's a big structural piece of wood through the middle of the layout. Round here you can see where I've started on ballasting today. And I'd just like to show you this little tool that I've got. It's from Pros. I'm not really sure how you're pronouncing that. It is an overseas thing. It says they're HO, but of course, as we all know, O and HO share the same track, so it's equally as useful for this. It'll also do O16.5 as well. Now, I've really come on well with this. With the fine paving sand that I'm using, it's probably a little bit on the fine side for this, so you end up with the sleepers reasonably well covered. But that's where my brush comes in, and I managed to drip some glue on it last night, so I'm a bit annoyed about that, and hopefully that'll break up. If not, I'll have to soak this in water. But this brush has proven very useful for the ballasting. As these are sidings, I'm not too bothered about huge piles of ballast everywhere. It may look a bit sort of weird at the moment, and that's partly because I've got this low down light over here to give me a little bit more light whilst I work, but also because I haven't yet been over with the brush to smooth things around. So it's actually using a lot of ballast, and that's where going for my method of using the kiln dried paving sand is really useful, because you save yourself an absolute fortune. And I did actually film a piece showing you the difference between the Pico ballast and this kiln dried paving sand, the amounts you get for roughly the same amount of money, and it is just staggering. It's not suitable for all types of ballast, but if you hunt around, you can find other different sands. You can either dry them yourself, which is quite labour intensive and might take a while. Get a metal bucket, stick it by a log burner or something like that for the winter, let it all dry out. Don't let people stub their cigarette ends out in it. And hopefully you'll get the grade of ballast that you require for a fraction of the price, because a layout like this, if you bought actual model railway ballast, would probably soak up £300 or £400 worth of the stuff. It is unreal how much it costs. But I'm going to crack on now. I'm going to smooth down this ballast, and then we'll move on to my glue mix. And now I've got proper cheap old school PVA. It does seem to be working quite nicely, so I'm going to crack on now. Right, I've been over with the paintbrush. It actually looks a bit like sand dunes at the moment. But that's just because the low light casting these weird shadows. So trust me, when the glue with the dye in goes over this, it won't look quite so weird. The sand's a little bit on the light side, but I'm going to now start on with the glue. I think some final tamping for some of those little dunes over there might be a good idea. But as you can see over here, exactly the same technique. It comes out looking alright. And you get kind of a shoulder with the ballast as well. So I'm going to crack on now. I've got my leftover glue from yesterday, day before yesterday. I'm going to use this up and then mix some more. It's really easy to just mix it up on the fly. So I'm going to crack on. Well, there we are. All the glue's in. It looks very black at the moment. That will grey down a bit as it dries. But one of the things to always make sure is where you've got sort of like ballast shoulders, where the ballast is perhaps a little bit thicker than normal, make sure you flood it really well with glue, because otherwise what happens is if you get the top coating covered, everything looks fine, but then you find the inside is sand that the glue hasn't percolated through, and it weakens it, and you can end up putting your finger through into what ends up being a pile of unglued sand. So just make sure that they're well flooded, and you know, have it so that it's really well flooded through with the glue mix, and when it dries, it'll dry really nice and strong. Now, a few people have asked me, why are you laying tracks straight to the baseboard? And the answer really is that because every layout bar my very first layout, I've done it this way. I don't mind the noise. I don't find the noise to be as big an issue as sometimes people make out. And it's, for me, it just makes building a lot easier. I've known a lot of people to have a lot of trouble with the foam underlays, which start to disintegrate after a few years. Really don't want that. I think that they're just a waste of money for buying something that is time limited in that way. So for me, especially with a lot of these sidings, you're going to see, what you see is what you get. They're not actually for a lot of running, they're merely for storing a lot of rolling stock, because it is a Marshall yard. So I've still got some more lines to do up here. The main lines I'm going to try and do without as much of this sort of inky blackness, because this just looks like ash and cinders and really filthy ballast. Up there I want it a lot cleaner, so I'll use a much weaker mix of the ink. But certainly these two tracks here, they're going to be fairly dark, and also I've got to do up here around the points. Still got a bit of work to do around here. I've got the main line to do all the way round, and there's still a lot to do over here. So we're breaking the back of it, but it's going to take a while. But it's getting a little bit warm. It's very hot outside actually, but up here in the loft it's not too bad, but it is warming up. And I'm going to just let that glue dry. It should dry fairly quick in this heat. Just been making on with a bit more of the ground cover. It's fairly simple, as you can see just along here. Essentially all I do is paint brown matte emulsion paint onto the wood surface, and then stick in varying degrees of static grass type stuff into the paint, and then you just sort of work it around with your finger, try and get a couple of different shades on. There's going to be a few more highlights to put in there. But then these are the two trees that I made under the instructions of the Woodland Scenics gentleman at Ali Pali. He gave me a bit of tuition on how to make trees, how to do landscape. It was really very much appreciated. And I finally planted these two trees here, and might have a few more low bushes, things like that along this little area just here. You can see it starts to come together really just with the application of what can only be described as the contents of the local carpet factory's Hoover bag. That is really all it seems to be, just the trimmings off carpet making, synthetic carpet making. It's just coloured fluff, but it works so well. So you can see it very quickly starts to feel like a layout rather than just a mass of wood and stuff. So yeah, coming along really nicely. It's getting awfully hot up here. I need to fit an extractor fan. Not helped up here by the humidity going up because of the amount of glue that's drying. But I'm just going to get on with various bits and pieces. I want to test out a few other Gauge Master products now. And this area here, this huge white expanse, what I'm thinking of doing here, I've moved all those wagons out because I didn't want the hairspray that I've been using. Yes, that's right. I use hairspray not just on my head, on my hair, but also for holding in place. It's like spray glue, basically, like spray mount, but without being quite as damaging for your lungs. So always go for the maximum hold strength, so max strength, and it just stops any of the loose fibres from escaping, and really does a reasonable effect. I know, some people are incredibly good at doing this. I'm not one of them, but I think that what I actually do achieve is pretty good. by my standards. You know, it's good enough. So a few more bits and pieces to do, but I'm gonna keep shuffling along. This is one of the products that I've bought. You can see here, Meadow Mat 6mm. So it's like ready done static grass without the need for actually having a static grass applicator. And when you're getting it out, it just seems to be some kind of almost like a vinyl mat which has all of the grass ready stuck to it, and you just cut it up, glue it where you need it. So I'm going to have a go with this and see how good it is. You can buy this in up to 8x4 sheets, 8 foot by 4 feet, so you can get quite a massive section of this stuff, but this is a little bit more manageable. So you see in the code there, GM141, and they do them in different colours as well. So this is meadow grass, but you know, there's about 6 or 7 different colours, and then over the top of this you can use this as almost like a base, like you would with static grass applications. So treat this as being a very, very well done bottom layer, and then you can do the flowers, things like that, the suggestion of different bits and pieces over the top, so you can add to this. And certainly as a starting point it looks to be pretty interesting. So I'm going to cut this up and I'm going to fit this to some of the embankments and just see where I get to. So test fitting the first piece cut up. Those wrinkles should disappear as I glue it down. I'm going to use some PVA. I'm going to try and get that just to fit into the contours that are on there and see how it looks. Well, there it is. It actually sticks down really easily. I'm quite pleased with this. You don't get a lot in a packet, mind, so it may be worth buying the larger sheets. But I'm going to move on now. I can lay another piece next to it, and I think that's probably all I'm going to get out this one packet. So it's an expensive way to do it, but the actual effect does look pretty reasonable. So it's certainly a product worth investigating. Well, that's pretty much an entire pack. You really don't get much. But gluing it down, dead easy. Cutting it up, dead easy. And trying to get the pieces to join together seems all right. Now, I'm going to be obviously going over with some flower material, treating it like static grass. I've got another pack which will continue along here. I need to do some plaster work before I go too far. And there's one small piece, you can just see it down there left over, which I'll find a use for it somewhere. It will just fit in between the tracks quite nicely and just give a little bit of an alternative. Quite good ground cover. I could see doing rolling hills in that stuff being really good. The only drawback is you don't get much in a pack, and that would make it very expensive. But if you're building a model railway for keeps, say somewhere like up here, or you want the finesse of static grass without actually having to do static grass, then certainly this product has a lot of potential. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little update showing you what I've been up to here on Weir Yard up in the loft. It's getting quite warm these days, so I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to go down and I'm going to crack on into a nice cold beer. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying it's been really great to have you along here. Really great to show you around. Glad you could join us, and don't forget to tune in next time when there'll be more update here on Weir Yard. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take really good care of yourself. Bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon. And a huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Mark Anthony, Michael Churchwood, Bob Threeton, Alec Ralph, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, and Offshore Alan. If you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knobty Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.